This is episode 168 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Welcome to episode 168 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today I have Sid and Ishan Khobare on the show, and these are two guys that really just got their journey started in late 2019, getting into real estate. They were a true rags to riches type story. I'm not saying that they've achieved rich or that they would describe it that way, but they really have hit a grand slam as far as progress goes, I would say. So they went from not knowing anything about real estate investing to going to all the meetups in end of 2019, early 2020, and they bought their first property in March 2020, and now they're at 20 plus doors. They're wholesaling properties, distributing 40,000 flyers a month, and they were both still working full-time jobs up until yesterday when Ishan actually quit his job. So it was a well-timed interview, and I'm confident that you're going to get a lot out of this because these guys hold nothing back. They really were transparent in the interview. They talked through their strategies. They talked nuts and bolts. They talked numbers. This had a lot of meat and potatoes to it, and it's something that a lot of investors can take something from. So before we get into that, if you could kindly just take a moment, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell on this video and leave a comment below. And if you're an audio listener, please rate and review this podcast so more people can find it. And without further ado, let's jump into episode 168 with Sid and Ishan Khobare. Hello and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I have Sid and Ishan Khobare, right? That's your name, both of your last names?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Are you guys brothers?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So you guys are real estate investing together. I don't think I've ever had a two sibling team on here. So thanks for being the first.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be
here. Okay, so which one's Sid and which one's Ishan?
So I'm Sid and he's Ishan.
Ishan, okay.
Yep.
All right. Do you guys mind telling me? I think I've seen messages from you guys from maybe a couple of years back on Instagram. I think we were chatting here and there.
Yes.
And I know you guys have been listening to the podcast for a long time. Do you mind just giving me a bit of a backstory, how long you've been in real estate, how you got into this, and we'll take it from there?
Yeah, a little bit of our backstory would be, we're from India. We were born filthy rich. We were literally millionaires when we were born. And that went south real quickly, from having 3 cars, maids, and drivers to Diwali being the most auspicious occasion for our culture. Forget about bursting crackers. We didn't even have money to eat food. From there, we had a rough patch. We adapted. We did our education. Our education was paid by someone else. We got good grades, and we finished our education. And then we are like, okay, India is good, but there is not a lot of opportunities to seize here. We need to do something big. Our parents had separated by that time, and our mother had made one house for herself. So we didn't have money to go abroad and pursue higher education. So that time we put a lien against our mom's house so that both of us could get student loans to come here and do our education abroad. We came here, we got good grades, amazing grades. We got amazing jobs, and we paid off our student debts, and our mom's home was free. That was a big relief to us. So during this whole phase, we felt like we were always pushed in the corner, and we just excel and exceed all the expectations. And once we had stable jobs, my brother was working for Microsoft. I was working for one of the top 5 metal companies as software developers. After that, we are like, what is the next challenge in life? This seems very different because we are not pushed in the corner and there's no challenge. So we are like, oh, something is off. This does not feel right. This is not normal. At that time, we took a break. We went to Europe for a vacation, for a 2-week vacation. At that point, we had no real estate, nothing. I didn't even know we wanted to do real estate. So we went on a 2-week vacation to one of the festivals that we hold very close to our heart called Tomorrowland. During this 2 week, we almost blew $30,000 to $40,000, which we didn't have. And then we come back and we are like, okay, that was the best time of my life. And I'm supposed to work all year to save up for this vacation. And then this is like, I get to live real life for 2 weeks in a whole year. And then I have to go back to normal life, which is not fun at all. And you're like, there must be a way out. This does not feel right. And that's when we explored real estate investing, and we have been hooked from that time onwards.
What was the time frame of that? So obviously, so you kind of came to a realization similar to what I came to. I'm like, why do people do this? Like, I thought you just get more educated, like just go get a PhD and then you can be wealthy. But that's obviously not the way that works, right? You can get a slightly higher paying job, but then people just pay more for rent and they're no better off. So time frame wise, when did this happen, this realization?
So I think 2019, July, we came back from Europe. And then by September, we were attending all the meetups, which were in Burlington, Toronto, London, Windsor, all of the meetups. You would see us everywhere. That was the time frame when we started educating ourselves towards investing. And by that time, we were like broke and we had no money. In fact, we had some debts at that time. So I would say 2019 September is when we started educating ourselves. And 2020 March was when we bought our first property amidst the peak of COVID.
Okay, so you guys got started sort of at the right time, I guess, because that was when things kind of dipped. They dipped a little bit right there. So did you end up buying something at a reduced price, or did you buy before prices went down a bit?
So we first started looking in the Windsor market since we did our master's of computer science from that market. So we tried finding a deal, but we weren't able to. And we were trying to close something at 5% down because we had no money. I think he had 13,000 in our RSP. I had 12, so not even 25 grand together. And we're like 5% is the way to go because we don't have the money. So we started looking in the Windsor market. We could not find anything. And then we slowly realized there is another way of finding deals, which is buying a wholesale deal. So we did end up buying a wholesale deal from our first mentor, Austin. Yeah. And that deal was pretty good for what we were looking for because it was a turnkey luxury student rental kind of setup. And it was completely renovated top to bottom, like pot lights everywhere, like nicely renovated. So once we bought that property, we just had to furnish it and start doing our luxury student rental. Correct.
Okay, so luxury student rentals in Windsor, that's how you started then. So first one was March 2020.
Yes.
And then what happened from there? Did you didn't have to do any renos, right? You just put some furniture in it and that was good?
Yeah, we put some furniture in. There was a den space that we converted into a bedroom. So like in the beginning, we were hungry and we were down to get dirty. So we did make a room out of that den by ourselves just to get a hang of things. And that was Ishan's primary. So the moment he locked that deal up, I'm like, okay, I need to close something as well. So I was looking for deals in Cambridge area because he had gotten a work from home letter from his office. So he could buy a primary pretty much anywhere. For me, I could not get a work from home letter. So I started looking in the Cambridge area because it's still drivable from my office location, which is in Mississauga. So we were looking for ideally something that we could convert into a duplex, like a duplex conversion project. Yeah. But then we stumbled upon this property where we are right now, which already had a legal secondary dwelling unit. So we got this for 442, and that wasn't like a steal of a deal. It was market price, but we liked the area so much because this house is pretty much the smallest and the cheapest house in this pocket of area. Yeah. Like everything besides me is $1 million, $2 million, $4 million overlooking the river, like luxury stuff. Yeah. So we got this at that time. I think this was April 2020. Yep.
Okay, so you guys were moving pretty quick. Now you guys only had a little bit of money. I'm doing quick math here. What did you need for a 5% down on? So 448 times 0.05. You needed 22. I thought you only had like 13.
Yeah, 22.5 plus closing cost, lawyer fees. So it's like around 25,000-ish. And sometimes you have to show 6.5% of the total purchase price in your account. That's what the bank wants to see. So we knew this was going to happen. And
that is one of the reasons we always emphasized on educating ourselves before getting into it.
Yeah.
So before we started real estate investing, the learning phase from July until March was to acquire as much lines of credit as possible. So there is a policy where Equifax gets updated once a month by the end of the month, right? So within the end of the month, if there are multiple credit inquiries done on your account, nobody knows how much leverage you have from the bank, how much line of credit you have used from the bank. So within 1 month, we went to specific banks like Scotiabank, for example. If you have a credit card with Scotiabank, you can convert it into line of credit.
I've done that.
This was one thing which we knew. Another thing was National Bank of Canada, where there's something called line of credit for engineers plan, which basically gives you up to $50,000 based on your income at prime plus 0.25. Prime was 2.45% back in the day. So it's less than 3% for $50,000. So I got 50 from there, 40 from Scotia, 10 or 15 from TD. So I'm over $100,000 in my lines of credit already. And similarly with Sid as well. So we had nearly $200,000 of line of credit even before we began our journey.
And that's not to be taken lightly, like looking at these numbers, like lines of credit, like the payments are actually very reasonable. But I mean, I've taken out, like on my first heavy reno, I had like $50,000 of credit card debt. Like I was like everything, all the lumber, everything went through the credit card because I didn't have the cash to pay for it. And I had the construction loan coming back, but I had to like pay for it first. So this is the type of thing that works really well for short-term financing. And I like how you guys just had no excuses. We don't have much. Well, we'll just learn what are other people doing. Clearly, we're not the only ones that came from absolutely nothing. We'll figure it out.
Absolutely.
And there's always a way to do that. So in terms of showing down payment, though, typically the banks want to see it for 90 days, right? So did you guys have to take it off a line of credit and leave it sitting in your account for 90 days?
So that was interesting where we being brothers come in play because Ishan had 13 coming from his RRSP. We knew we had the money in our lines of credit. So I give Ishan gift letters.
That's actually hilarious. So you can gift him the money, he can gift you the money.
and then just like that, less than 1 month later when I'm closing, he gives me a gift letter. So we are closing on both the properties. I think we were out of pocket, I think 35 on Ishan's property because he had to give a wholesale fees. And for my property, we were 25 out of pocket. So roughly 60,000 we were out of pocket when we had only 25.
And if I'm not mistaken, there's nothing wrong with doing that, right? You're allowed to gift him the money, like you guys, your family members. So according to the rules, that's fine. I mean, that's not advice to anybody. Do your own research, but that was my understanding. So that's actually really smart and a really good thing when you got two brothers investing together. Okay, so you guys got two properties real quick. And obviously the market's been favorable for appreciation since then. So you've probably built quite the net worth. What were the next moves after those two?
So while we were buying these two properties, we bought Ishan's property, which cash flows $1,000 every month. So that was like our safety net. And then on my property, we were renovating the basement unit because we didn't have the money at that time. So we were renovating it ourselves, which we don't do anymore because it's not so fun and not the best use of our time. So the basement unit, while renovating, one of our dear friends, James Fernandez, suggested like, why don't you do Airbnb? Because that is the next thing which is booming. So we renovated the basement downstairs, made it look fancy, and we started doing Airbnb in the basement. So that used to get us like $2,000 to $2.6 from a 450 square feet basement unit in Cambridge.
Wow.
Yeah. So that pretty much paid our mortgage and part of our utilities. And we live upstairs in the 2-bed unit, like pretty much paid like $300-400 for utilities.
So smart.
Yeah.
If you come from the frugal mindset, like those decisions are so easy to make. I've again, you probably heard me say this. I've run this by my wife. She won't do that.
Yeah. So I think moving forward, we had a friend of ours who was he saw what we are doing and what we are making out of the real estate investing side. And he was like, I trust you guys. I want you to help me buy a property. Let's partner together. And that time we were trying to find a student rental for him near Windsor. he also studied from Windsor, so we felt comfortable doing that. So we got a property under contract, and we went firm on it. And at the last moment, the bank pulled out and said, "You're trying to buy a primary, and that is too close to the university. So I know what you're doing, so I'm not going to give you the mortgage." So you're like, "Oh, damn, we are firm on this property. So what is our next move?" It was his first property, so we didn't want to put him in a pickle.
Mhm.
So what we did was we closed on the property ourselves using some private money, and it needed some love. So we gave it some love. So this was September of 2020.
Mhm.
And then we eventually sold it, I think in January or February of 2021.
Okay. Were you able, I mean, obviously the market just kept going up all that time. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing you were able to make a good buck, especially Windsor. Windsor was like 30% a year over that period.
Yes, I think after everything was said and done, we made like, I think 20 grand or so. Not a lot, but at the same time, like we wanted to get rid of that property because it was on private and just like it was sucking a lot of money.
So that's sort of taking your medicine. I mean, unfortunately, you guys were able to make some money on it, but I mean, that's when, you know, that's a fail, but it turned out pretty well. And I've been there too, right? Like sometimes you just got to take the medicine, and that's not fun.
But the best part that came out of it was we got exposed to private lending.
Correct.
Until that time, we were in a mindset where, oh, we don't have money. How do we find a deal? How do we even close the deal? And then after we got exposed to private lending, it just opened our brains to like, you just need to find a deal and everything else will fall in place.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion any good deal gets funded.
Correct.
If you find a good deal, you will find the money. There will be somebody that'll see the value you do, right? Because like think about it, if other people would be willing to buy that property, then certainly other people are going to be willing to finance that property. And,
Absolutely.
The bigger challenge is just figuring out something that, okay, yes, I can buy it, and yes, I can renovate it and sell it and make a gain, but it's the what ifs. The market doesn't continue to go up or the market goes down, then what will I do? And make sure that this isn't something that will break me. And everybody's got their own comfort level with that. Like some people are just super comfortable with taking the more risk, and at some times I think that's appropriate, but not for everybody. Of course, you guys were not playing really that game, right? Windsor was still had cash flow at that time, so you had a good contingency.
Correct.
Okay, so tell me next steps.
Yeah, so I think after that, so this partner of ours was still looking for a property. So
you will rewind to what happened in January 2020.
Yeah, so January 2020, even before we bought any of our properties, we had this landlord of ours where we were staying in his rooming house back when we were studying there. So after like we started into investing, we go back to him. He has like 10, 15 properties there. We go back to him and say, "Hey, I want to buy all your houses." So he's like, "You don't even own anything." I'm like, "We have good salaries. We could do this. And we know how the student rental market is. We have lived in this house. So sell me one of your houses." So he decided to sell it to us. But by the time we were newbies at that time. So by the time we got it under contract, the price just kept going up because we didn't know how to negotiate. We didn't know we have to get everything in writing rather than being on a verbal note. So the day we got it under contract, some woman from Brampton just shows up and sees the foreign sign. Like we got it under contract for 320 when we started the negotiation 4 months back from 270. And we are like, why didn't we get it? Like, why didn't we get anything signed? Like we were budging on the fact that if he does the roof, he's going to give it to us at 285. If he doesn't do the roof, he's going to give it at 280. Now we were budging for $5,000 because we were novice. We didn't have much information. And then finally we got it under contract for 320. But this lady from Brampton shows up and she just gives an offer for 350. And we are like, oh my God, I don't think I can match that because that number does not even make sense anymore. So you might as well give it to her. And I'm very happy for you. Yes. And then we see in the contract, it says vacant on possession, and it's 7-bedroom rooming house. Vacant on possession is not a possibility. So that falls through. So we leverage our network to help him sell that deal to another investor for the same price. So he's happy. Yes. And we didn't get anything, but we are happy that he makes the money. So we are like, okay, what are you going to sell next? I would like to buy that. He's like, I have a duplex just in Walkerville. And he's like, but I don't sell 2 properties a year because of tax perspective. So we're like, okay, let's do this. Like, can you sell it to us right now? But we close next year, January. That's 2021 January. And he gives it to us for a duplex for 330.
Yep.
And then 2021 January, our partner is still looking for a deal.
Yes.
So we are like, okay, you need to buy this, but you're not allowed to buy this at 5% because this is a proper BRRRR.
Yes.
So by the time we close on it, its market value was 380, 390. So we had a lot of money on the close. We somehow managed the money around our partner, and that was the big fiasco as well, because he didn't have the money. He could not qualify for the mortgage. We are like, okay, get your girlfriend on title.
Yes.
So you could qualify for the mortgage. And in that way, the girlfriend's mother can write you a gift letter, but we don't need the money. We'll rotate the money amongst ourselves. So he was able to close on the property for 20%. And we did some renos, and come March 2021, how much did we refinance this for?
485. So 485 he got on the refinance value, but then again, his salary was not enough. So basically his TDS or the GDS, either of the one, I think TDS was not coming up to the par. So what happened is basically he could only get 75% loan to value, which came down to $363,000. Now, $363,000 encapsulated the down payment for $330 and the purchase price, along with the $30,000 reno. So we barely made like $5,000 of profit, where we could have made another $20,000, but he had a car. So the car payments, now we are trying to educate him. If you want to get into real estate, like initially you have to make a little bit of sacrifice so that you can push forward your growth, and then gradually you can get the car and that. So that's the property. We did a complete BRRRR. Jan 2020 we started. March 2020, sorry, 2021. Yeah, Jan 2021 we started the purchase, and then March 2021 we had refinanced the property.
Yeah. So you guys were pretty active there, obviously moving pretty quickly. So this partner, are you guys 50-50 with him?
Yeah, we are 50-50 with him.
So you guys share 50% and then he has the other 50%.
Yeah, correct.
He's on the mortgage, and ultimately worked out to be a perfect BRRRR for him.
Yeah, and it flowed after as well, since it was a duplex.
So why, I mean, I guess you guys had already kind of talked to him about this, but when people go with JVs, I always like to understand why, because for me, it needs to be more than just the money. Now, do you guys find that that's the case here? Like, what's the main benefit you feel you get from doing that as a JV?
So our main goal when we started investing was to break and make things, go through each strategy so we know what we feel actually comfortable with. So we started with student rental, we started with multiple units Airbnb, then this private lending in the third property, then fourth property was JV. So our goal is to try all the different faucets, and whoever we are comfortable with, work with them. And this friend of ours is very close. We were looking at some night during our engineering days and how we are going to make it in this country. We had no idea. And this guy was very close to me. So I was like, okay, let's work with him.
Okay.
So that was the strategy behind doing different things. And then in January 2021, we realized everything starts from a deal. If you have the deal, you can dictate and navigate the next steps. So our goal was to start wholesaling. So January 2021, we started wholesaling. And we were living in Cambridge. Slowly, we were getting into wholesaling, learning wholesaling, how to do wholesaling and all that stuff.
Okay. Yeah. And did you guys quit your jobs, or you're both still working full time?
I just quit my job yesterday, the day before.
Congratulations. Well-timed interview then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Sid, you're still working?
I am still working. I will eventually quit as well as we stabilize our business side, stabilize the wealth generation side and the active side, so we have enough money to fund up.
Do you guys have an active corporation that pays you so that you can start showing income so that you can keep qualifying for mortgages?
We have started an active corporation for wholesaling this year. Last year, when we started a corporation, we were told that unless you make a lot of income, just keep one corporation and do everything on that corporation, like Airbnb rentals. The money was rented to the corporation and the corporation was running the Airbnb. Wholesaling was done under that corporation. And we purchased an apartment building in Cambridge. We also bought that under one corporation because we were just putting money in and the money was not coming out in that manner.
The only thing tricky there is if you want to go back and refinance that apartment building now, when you present to the lender, if you give them financial statements for the company, it's a mismatch of a lot of things. It's not just, it might
Yes.
get a little bit stickier when you're trying to apply for a loan, showing them your financial statements. And it's like, well, that wasn't related to this property. Um,
That is true. Like you're absolutely right. Like you try to separate as much as you can in the beginning, but sometimes, like for our situation, we didn't want to incur more costs, but we were
right.
rapidly growing. So right now is the time when we are separating all our corporations and separating businesses according to how our
Yes.
accountant advances.
Yeah, and you mentioned something before, which I think is worth talking about, is when you have like somebody just got a new car. Like as a mortgage agent, I remember like going through that so much and just being so annoyed by it that basically like I'd have a mortgage deal done, and then the guy, like from when we did the pre-approval to when they went to wanted to get approved, they would have gone out and bought a new car and got a $600 a month payment. I'm like, okay, well you did qualify, but now you don't.
Yeah.
So you could just return the car or pay off that loan, and then we'll be okay. But wait, you don't have the money to do that. So that's something definitely to think about. Now, some of the things you can do is you can get a RIN, like a number for your company, and you can actually buy your vehicles in your company and take your loans. Even if you personally guarantee them, my experience is that personally guaranteed loans in a company don't show up on my credit. That's been my experience. I'm not saying everybody would have that experience, but that's what I've seen so far. So there's like something where all of a sudden it doesn't affect you. And I'm always like thinking about that, like anything I do in my name, this is going to affect me. So, hey, is there any way I can buy that in the company? Talking to my accountant, hey, can I put this in the company? I mean, and at very worst, you just pay dollar for dollar back, whatever the loan is. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is what my thought process is. And these are just ways to make sure you keep your personal name clean so that you don't have any issues getting future financing.
Absolutely. So we are of the ideology that anything that's depreciating, you buy all cash. You don't take out mortgages for that. Like cars,
any loans.
Yeah, just buy it outright, and whatever you can buy, that is what you can buy. If you go on a payment, then you'll just buy something that you can't afford, and then you're just stuck with payments. Like in the scenario of our friend, he was allowed to qualify only for 300. The property you're trying to close was 330, and by that time the Windsor market had taken off, and you could find anything for 300. Now this this $200 payment reduces his mortgage capacity by 30,000.
Yeah, $200 or $400 payment.
Yeah, I think it's 200. 200 drops it by $30,000. So that was the discrepancy, which did not allow him to buy that property. And then we had to go through the whole circle of getting his girlfriend on title. And even with the refinance, we could not refi it for 80% loan to value because he had a lot of debts. We had to refi it at 75.
Correct.
So he was leaving a lot of money on the table. If he didn't have the car, he would have made another 25,000, and he could have probably gone and purchased that car outright. So it's I would suggest don't buy cars on payments unless you have a good real estate portfolio, or you think you have established what you want, and then you go and buy luxuries from the money you get from your real estate.
Hey, I like that philosophy. I mean, I think at the end of the day, for a lot of people, the growth strategy is going to be moving more over to like commercial banking, where it's not about you anyway. But I agree, like from a personal finance standpoint, that's certainly not a bad idea. To be able to deprive yourself of the things you want until you've earned them, I think is well worthwhile. Okay, so tell me about this apartment building you bought.
So we started wholesaling, and we were learning different facets of wholesaling, how to talk to people, emotional, psychological, what's the number you start with, how do you end, and all that stuff. We were two people, so that was really working in our favor. So whenever we used to go and connect with a family or someone, one person will engage the other one person, and the one person will engage the other person. This way you have a good understanding of what the person is thinking and try to dig into their why, while the other person can talk the numbers specifically and specifically focus on the deal. So we found a 4-5-unit building in Cambridge. It is a half an acre lot, and the zoning was RM4, which allows multiple expansion based on the lot size. The lot size was 22,000 square feet, which was pretty good. And the density was also really good. So understanding all these things, we were like, okay, this is something we would like to get. And we offered them some price, And then they were like, maybe it'll work out, or we need more and other things. But then I was thinking, why don't you go with a realtor if you really need more money, right? But then there were so many issues where the tenants were suing the owner, with the landlord tenant board and the Cambridge city, with all, there was a lot of behind the scenes going on. So we told them, hey, listen, we can give you an offer where we take all your problems. You don't have to worry about that. And what's a good price where we can work around? So they confirmed the price. We were happy about it. We got this building for $810,000, and appraisal came at $960,000. So we made $150,000 on the buy, but we did not have any money to close because we already were leveraged, right, in other properties. So we were discussing how to go about it. Now, JV, when the deal is so good and you're exposed to private lending, it's like, how do you go about it? Because we have got the taste of private lending. So now we were like, okay, let's explore the routes of what options we have. And once we have all the options on the table, then go about it.
So I think by that time we had realized that our time is becoming more and more valuable because we are trying to get into different businesses like wholesaling, and we really don't have time doing our full-time jobs. So we're like, okay, that student rental in Windsor, it's been a year, so you can actually sell it because that's a lot of work, even though it's $1,000 cash flow, but that is not the direction we want to be in. So we sold that, we got $150,000. And we are like, okay, let's see how can we get into this deal creatively. So there's one of the lenders named Kyle Ford from KWC. We reached out to him and he saw the opportunity and the numbers look really good. So we asked him, I want to get into this deal at 0% down. He's like, okay, if you can get me 950 appraisal, you're good. And the appraisal came in at 960. So we got into the deal with none of our money down.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you can do deals with 0 down as long as your appraisal comes. Like the banks won't allow that, but private lenders will. They understand there's people who know how to get a good deal. Even on market deals, if somebody underprices something and you get in day like 1 or 2, like I did that. We did that with our campground. Like we got in there real quick and we got it tied up and we knew we got a good deal and the appraisal came in much higher. And so 0 down. Those are nice deals when you get them. Of course, we have a lot of other money to spend on that deal. So it was good that we were able to do that. But okay, so glad to hear that worked out. How many units is that building?
That's a 5-unit building. So we got the deal towards the end of closing and we found out that, it has so many issues. So Ishan went back to the seller and got another 10,000 reduction. So we finally had the deal for 800.
Can I add to that? So whenever you're buying a building or anything, you got to do your due diligence, irrespective of how much meat on the bone you have. So what I did is I applied at the city to find out if there are any outstanding open work permits or any more issues that the owner has not let me know about it yet. So it took 2 to 4 weeks. They removed the address and the personal details of the owner, and they give you what permits were initially opened, closed, and still are open. Mm-hmm. So I found out a lot of issues still coming up. And then I was like, okay, either you solve it or I'll solve it. And you have not even let me know in the past 1 month that these were something, right? So when I do my homework, I got another $10,000 reduction.
So those were not in your contract, but they were a material undisclosed defect that the seller didn't disclose to you. Yes. So because he didn't disclose it, it had to be dealt with, right?
Exactly.
Did you have your lawyer's advice on that?
No, we were educated enough where people were buying duplexes and they found out that it's a single family home. So we were like, always do the homework, based on other people's experience. Even lawyers, like when we do wholesaling, we always advise that we'll pay for the other person's lawyer, because we have seen lawyers hijack the deal from the sellers when they see, it's so under market, I'll buy it myself, right? Yeah. So we have seen that happening. So we have done a lot of homework, and I think that has come to a lot of fruition.
So you write a contract and say, we'll pay for your lawyer's review, but you're going to pick the lawyer? Or
so what we do is we'll give them a list of lawyers who we work with regularly. And we tell them, like, as long as you pick one of these lawyers, we pay for your lawyer. If you get your own lawyer, you pay for it. So our lawyers understand the whole wholesaling process. So they're like, once they see the contract, it's not like multiple red flags going on. But a normal lawyer who probably is in real estate or is not in real estate and who has only seen MLS deals, all sorts of red flags go off and they're like, this is not going to happen. And then
if they don't understand it, usually, I mean, it used to be if somebody had to discuss an investment with their lawyer, I'm like, okay, that's not happening. Like the lawyers do not gain by telling you to invest in something. They only take on liability. It's much more in a lawyer's interest to tell you not to do something or all the red flags, because then they don't face future liability from you one day saying, I lost money, because they're never going to come back to you and say, hey, you told me not to do that deal and it ended up being worth, $1 million more than I bought it. People don't do that, but they would come back to the lawyer and say, you told me to do that deal and I lost money. So just kind of keeping that in mind, that's crafty. Did you guys come up with that idea yourself?
We spoke to a few wholesalers and saw how they worked and discussed our issues. Because so at this point we were very well plugged into the network. Yes, like we knew everyone pretty much. So we were we had a really good relationship with everyone, and we would discuss and bounce off ideas from each other, which has really helped us. And by that time, you're like, okay, you also face the same issue. Yes. Every time it goes to anyone's lawyer, it's like the deal is done. It's not going to happen. So even step up deposits. So when you're trying to justify why you're just giving $1,000 deposit for a $500,000 or $1 million building, I'm not going firm yet. Once I go firm, what is the deposit amount you would like to see? I can place it during that time. So you're mitigating the concerns and actually answering in a way that they can understand, rather than, hey, I'm doing wholesaling and that's how I do. No, that's not how you do business.
Yeah. Well, there are some people that'll just argue, well, hey, I do this all day long. We tie up a lot of buildings. And, because of that, we do relatively small deposits, but they find a way to spin it and still get the seller to agree, right? I mean, it's whatever you can sell, right? Yeah. You have to know your own voice and how you can position that. But the step up deposit, that's a common one. Realtors use that too. While we're doing due diligence, we're not going to give you a whole bunch of money, but we will step it up once we go firm.
Yeah, correct. And in that scenario, we can, as long as it's assigned before we get done, we go firm, we can use the buyer's deposit to be pushed towards the seller, and we don't have any of our money stuck in the deal other than the $500,000 we put up front.
Okay, so the deal, the money you put up front, you get that back when the deal closes, or do you make the buyer you assign it to pay you back right away?
So if you put $1,000 in the beginning, we get that when it's closed. But at the step up, when we go firm, we say, okay, we'll give you $20,000, $40,000 deposit. As long as it's assigned before we go firm, we just push buyers, assignees deposit to the buyer.
Okay. And what type of properties are you guys trying to wholesale and wholesaling? Yeah.
So we're basically working in an hour's radius around Cambridge, whatever we can find. And we also tried to do in Barrie, which was pretty awesome. So I'm not sure if we are good to disclose that details because it's going on right now, but it's kind of nearly a very good profit. And I mean, I think in wholesaling, it's not like this is my niche and only this is what I will wholesale. Correct. Whatever we find, as long as it fits our business model, we keep it. If it does not fit our business model, but the numbers are juicy, we wholesale it. That's the idea.
Okay. So are you guys flyering neighborhoods? Are you door knocking? Do you have a team that door knocks? Like, what's your method of generating leads?
So our main method is dropping flyers because it is tested with time and it always works. And for us personally, doing our full-time jobs, we didn't have so much time to spare. So we would rather pay for the flyers than actually burn time. We have tried a few different techniques like driving for dollars and just getting the whole database of the city, which kind of helps. And then you target those houses because having a whole database of the city is priceless as long as you are investing in that market. Correct. So we hit them with a personal note for the A class, like the important, like the worst houses. We hit them regularly, and then we go down according to the grading system we have.
Okay, so you go after the worst neighborhoods or good neighborhoods with bad houses, or a mix?
No. So suppose if you're driving on King Street, for example, right? Sure. In King Street, we found one of the houses is boarded up. Why would you have a boarded up house? So we drop a letter then and there. And then every month or every 2 months, we will be dropping another letter. Like we have this letters over here. We have like 100 or something. We have stamped it over here. We put our letter in the envelope and just go and drop it, like put it in the post box. And then
So are you mailing the owner's address directly? Because a lot of times the boarded up house, the owner obviously lives somewhere else.
Correct. So if it's a juicy deal, we'll do the reverse lookup, find them on or try to see if they have any other properties. And if that looks like his primary, we target that as compared to this. That's the general idea.
Yeah, I mean, the city's database, the tax roll, they'll probably have the mailing address for the tax bill so that you could just mail that directly. I know I've done that before. That hasn't worked, but I mean, sort of it has. It depends. Like, I guess you have to question mark. I did tie up a deal and then I bailed on it because the guy didn't disclose stuff, just like what we were talking about. Okay, so basically you're mostly just mailing right to these addresses.
Yeah, correct. Other than the Canada Post flyer batch, which we do direct mail campaign.
So you do the Canada Post to residential addresses. Right. Are you doing like a few thousand at a time or 10,000 at a time?
So we started with 20,000 per month, and then we slowly scaled it to 30 and 40. What we have realized is when we drop a batch of 40, the volume of calls that come in, we can't really efficiently handle all the calls when all of them come at the same time. Mm-hmm. So what we're trying to do next is our goal is to come to 50,000 a month flyers, and then just divide it into two sections, first of the month, mid of the month. And then we have involved one of our, we just hired someone who's been the first point of contact, who's filtering all the calls. Yep. And then we do the walkthroughs, we take over the negotiations from there.
How many walkthroughs will you do? Like if you're doing 40,000 a month, how many walkthroughs are you doing a month?
It depends, because when you send flyers in Cambridge, you barely get out of 20,000 flyers, you barely get 4 calls. Yeah. But then when you send it to different markets, the reaction is very different.
Depends on how much people have seen that. Like how often do they get flyers? Like the first time I talked about the first time I did it in Hamilton, no one was doing the area I was doing, clearly, because I got my phone blown up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hundreds of calls.
Absolutely. And it's also about repetitively hitting, because they won't call you when they see your flyer for the first time, but when they have seen it for the third time, they will call you. And sometimes it's more like, oh, I might sell my house 4 months down the line. So they hold on to that flyer and you get a call 5 months later and you're like, I didn't even flyer that area anytime recently. And then you're like, okay. So that's,
Cool. Okay. So that's moving well for you guys. How many properties are you wholesaling a month? Or, I guess if maybe you're not quite one a month with those number of calls.
So what we're trying, the funny thing with wholesaling is we are investors first and wholesalers afterwards. Yeah. So we pretty much close on everything we get for the most part, unless it's a retail buyer deal. And then we just, even finding a retail buyer on an investor list is tough. So we just, we involve a couple agents and we dispose the deal like that. And then everyone gets a piece of the pie.
Yep. Nice. Yeah. So you guys have turned this into some significant money. I mean, obviously, primarily it's building your portfolio. How many more properties have you acquired since, you had your first 2? What are you at now?
We are at, I think, 20 units, out of which most of them are in KWC in 2 years. Yeah.
Okay. So is that 10 houses or 15 houses or 50? How many buildings?
I think we have a couple duplexes here. We have a duplex in Windsor, the 5-unit building that we bought. Something clicked to us and we are like, oh, we should convert this into an 8-unit building. And we are converting that into an 8, which is very interesting project, because we are learning so much doing a reno worth $800,000 for the first time. And it's a wonderful learning process. And then we just got 2 side-by-side triplexes under contract in Kitchener for 1.35 mil.
And a single Kitchener triplex goes for 850 with tenants. Without tenants, it goes minimum 900. Wow. So we got 2 for 1.35. So we have enough meat on the bone. So we're just thinking we should partner, wholesale, keep it. We want to focus on multifamily apartment buildings. So there's so many things going on right now.
Oh, you guys are impressive. You've taken what you've learned, you've applied it. I think, did you guys ever make it out to the meetups that I used to host?
I went to the first meetup in Burlington before COVID, right? Yeah. I didn't have any properties back then, but I used to go in all the meetups. So I saw you over there and saw a lot of people over there. Yeah.
So
I might start doing those again.
Yes,
absolutely.
yes.
Yeah. And I think wholesaling has helped us a lot. Like in the first year in 2021, we had so many deals and we just missed it. Like I'm like, I will ponder on myself and I'm like looking at it, how did I miss those good deals which I almost had? Correct. So coming in 2022, we got better at this. We failed so many times that we know where we go wrong and we have a foolproof plan of making sure that those mistakes don't happen again. So I think in January of 2022, we got a deal under contract in BRRRR, which came from a flyer batch that we had dropped like 5 months ago. Yeah. And we went to the place. This is an interesting story. We went to the place. So this guy calls me and he's like, hey, I want to sell my house. And I kind of filtered him out and he was looking like he was motivated. So, and he's like, hey, can you come tomorrow? I have other wholesalers coming as well. I'm like, I'm not driving all the way there. So I qualify him to get it to a point where what's the price range? What if I give you something in the price? Let me do my due diligence. So I do my due diligence. I'm like, okay, if I do fall in the price range, I will give you an offer. I'm not coming there to see your house. And if I do give an offer, which is your price range, will you accept it? He's like, okay. I'm like, oh my God, this deal is going to work. So all the wholesalers were coming the next day. Yep. I'm like, Ishan, we need to go no matter what. We have to leave right now. And so we finish our office at 5. And then we just pretty much start driving. And there's a snowstorm on the way. Yeah, a friend of ours calls and he's like, why are you going today? Go tomorrow. There's a snowstorm going on. I'm like, I don't care about the snowstorm. I have a good SUV. I have my brother. We'll just figure it out. You're driving like 40 or 50 kilometers per hour basically. On the highway. It took like 1.5 hour journey. Took like 2.5 hours to 3 hours. So we roughly get there at 7:30. Yeah. And the moment we enter, so Ishan is very good with his social skills. So he's like, the moment he opens the door, he's like, I love your energy, and kind of got him talking and ease him off. And then 15 minutes, we do the walkthrough, and then we are sitting on his table, and we're like, okay. 1:45, we started vibing. Yeah. And when we started vibing, we just like talking about world, COVID, people, mentality, everything that's out there. But the house. So we started talking and then we are like, it's 12:15, midnight. And we're just vibing. Yeah. And at 12:15, you're like, shall we do this? He's like, okay, perfect. So he's like, you wanted 700 and I was going to give you 700, but I saw that the upper washroom is half washroom. So I'll give you 695. And he accepted it. So that's amazing. And we had like conditional for 5 days. So we, instead of doing a normal inspection, we did a construction inspection. Yeah. What it entails, he will do the inspection, how it's done. But at the same time, whatever is broken, he will give me a quote of how much you can get it fixed for this price. Correct. Mm-hmm. So we got a quote. And then 1 week later, we go back to him and we're sitting on his table. And again, the same thing, we get there at 7:30, we're again vibing till 12 o'clock because we hit it off. So at 12:15, I pull up the inspection report and I'm like, see, there is expenses of $35,000. So can you please reduce something? So we get it under contract for how much finally? 675. 675 in the middle. So this was like, this is the emphasis on, so wholesaling is not just like going and pricing the things. It's about understanding the person and making the person feel the trust in working with you rather than anyone else. So just imagine if I'm trying to go and talk to a girl who looks beautiful and I'm scared, I don't have that much confidence. She can smell the fact that I don't have enough confidence. Similarly, when I'm going to a wholesale persons to see someone's house, to see their house, and I'm always thinking numbers and I'm thinking, they can feel the vibe. So as long as you feel comfortable, you're here to help them to sell their house, whatever price point they want, basically. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, you want more money, that's cool. As long as you know what you need, right? And if you need more money also, what we do is, instead of like, hey, no, work with us and all that, we don't work like that. We educate them. So these are the comparables in your neighborhood. Whoever real estate agent you're going with, if they tell you that it will sell for $2 million or $5 million, these are the comparables. So it will actually sell for somewhere in this range. So I just want you to be educated and you decide who you want to work with. I'm okay with that completely, right? So this way you're kind of building a bond, building trust. This we learned the hard way.
And then once we started having systems in place, now things are actually picking up pace. And yeah.
So that deal, we got it for 675.
Yeah.
How much did we wholesale it for?
You want to share all the numbers?
So we wholesaled it for $200,000 assignment fees.
Yeah.
And out of that, it was like a flip. So our agent helped us out in disposing it. So among the two agents, they kept, 40, I think 40,000 or so. So we made $160,000 in that one wholesale deal, even without closing on that.
Yeah.
Now, would this type of deal, like, I mean, you talked about showing them comps. Did it just end up that it appraised more or it sold more? The market went up.
Yes.
It did appraise for the price that we wholesaled it for.
Yes.
Okay. So did you show him? Did he know that he was leaving money on the table with you guys?
So the idea is, like, I think if you would have noticed, everything went up by 100,000 easy from December to January. And this, we had the first conversation on January 7th. Right. And we didn't really have to get there where we show him comps, because there was a level of trust to a point where he signed the deal on the spot without.
Oh, okay. So you didn't even have to get into that conversation. Oh, that's even better. Yeah, if it doesn't have to go there.
Like I mentioned, right? Like, we were vibing so much that we had that level of trust and communication that moment the documents pulled up, we already knew.
Not everybody wants the highest price, right? So it's just a matter of, like you said, finding out the why, getting in there, learning about them, and connecting with them, most importantly, right? Okay, guys, this has been enlightening. I like how transparent you are about things, and that's, that's a great trust builder there too, right? That's obviously why people like working with you. How do people follow with you, connect with you? Where should we send them?
So we are on Instagram and Facebook, and we would like to just want them to connect with us through Instagram, Facebook, or email us. We can drop our email as well.
Yeah.
And we're basically moving forward to work in the multifamily space. We went for a couple of weeks in US as well. In Arizona, we saw like 10 apartment buildings in Phoenix and LA downtown, and now we are going to Edmonton as well. So we're trying to look for properties where more cash flow incentive in the apartment building space. That's my focus in the business, and he'll be taking care of the operations and wholesale. So if there's any questions related to these aspects, reach out to us.
If this aligns with your investing strategy, reach out and we'll see if we can partner on something if it makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And hope we can stay in touch. Maybe we'll meet each other at a meetup again in the near future.
Absolutely. I'll be looking forward to that.
Thank you so much for having us, Andrew.
All right, guys. Have a good day.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Please make sure to share this episode far and wide. Help it help more people. I really appreciate you tuning in. I'll see you on the next one.